Yesterday, Michael Kratsios, the director for the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, gave remarks on the Trump administration's policy agenda for technology. And he highlighted the importance of promoting America's technological leadership by creatively allocating federal dollars, constructing a pro-innovation regulatory regime, and adopting products made by American builders to enable their exports abroad. So James Poulos, he is the host of Zero Hour on BlazeTV, and he joins us now to discuss. So James, what was your main takeaway from this event that went on yesterday?
Well, Jill, this is really a sort of statement of intent here. This is the highest level pronouncement on what the administration's tech policy as such is going to look like, coming from a guy who was there the first time around. Kratsios knows his way around the White House for sure, and he's stepping out now. This is his homecoming, and something to take very seriously.
So, what do you hope to see? What do you hope to see from the Trump administration, and does this fit with that?
Well, yeah, I think the big pull quote from this particular address is, of course, Kratsios referring to technologies that the United States has under its command or control that can change space and time. He says that they can, I think, destroy distance. Now that, has a lot of people talking about maybe he's referring to UFOs. Maybe this is the beginning of some part of serious disclosure on the part of the government. There have been rumors for a long time that this is all kind of like U.S. versus China technological competition, and that the U.S. wants to kind of reveal these things to China in a controlled way. I don't know. We'll see. The next line after that was we have technologies that basically make things grow. So I think he's talking in a little bit more comprehensive terms about kind of the real depth and scope of the technological resources that the United States government has. Still heady stuff. Back in the old days, it was Zeus who threw the thunderbolts around. Now that we're out of the pagan era, allegedly, that those powers belong to states like the United States government. So how are we going to control these? How are we going to use these tools judiciously? How do we make sure that as we ratchet things up with China, we don't sort of lose control of the tit for tat? These are all questions on everyone's minds right now, not just in the economic sphere. And I think we'll all be looking forward to hearing a little bit more about how the administration intends to deal with that.
So because it's fun, let's go into this the UFO thing, because I saw that too, and I was laughing because obviously you could be talking in a sort of broad language about how technology does change time, makes things faster, and so forth and so on. We can travel faster through space, etc. But it is the way in which he said it, in the environment in which we live now. So many people grabbed onto it and said, "See, he's referring to the secret weapons that we have." I mean, what's your take on all this? It's amazing to me how quickly some of these podcasts and influencers who talk about UFOs or unexplained phenomena have grown, and at the same time, there's sort of these like almost whispers in the background about technology that has not been revealed, that we're not aware of yet. And then third, I'll say, we also are seemingly surprised at technology that's been around a while that we just haven't thought about, right? Like changing the weather, some kinds of forms of weather modification, et cetera. And so this is all in a very strange mix right now, sort of bubbling. And I know you think about these things. So what should we make of it?
I mean, it's anyone's guess to a degree. Like the drip on the UFO stuff. Oh, it's coming out of the oceans, and thermal imaging on the 3 orbs orbiting the Malaysian aircraft that still has mysteriously vanished due to the Chinese scientists. I mean, you can go down any number of rabbit holes here. This is probably not the time or the place to do it. But this is also a question of like, when does something cross over from being based actually into being like, whoa, scary and a big problem? You do want the government to have some secret weapons, right? Just like you want the intelligence community to have some secrets and some secret agents. And how much is that really different from having, that ace card up your sleeve that you don't pull out in case of a serious emergency? So I think that one way of theorizing about the kind of technological stagnation that Peter Thiel and other critics of Google and big tech, the sort of established tech companies, talking about is that they sort of knew somehow that the feds had some ultimate super weapon in the stockpiles, and so why do you really want to advance technology when it's already secretly advanced to a level that would just sort of freak everyone out or seriously destabilize the international order? But now we're living in what has been publicly acknowledged by the administration, more or less, as a the post-war international order being a thing of the past. We've got heads of state, I think in the UK, saying globalization is over. Trump has ended it. Everyone knows that they tried the Great Reset. It didn't work. We need to reset the reset. What is that going to look like? Well, it's going to be the people in the driver's seat who are going to have outsized influence over what that looks like. Obviously, you got to take the American people into account, and hopefully it's not the unelected government that does all the work here. But anyway you slice it, it is going to involve technology, and so this is kind of a refounding moment. Not just because of sort of smart people with ideas finally getting their hands on the wheel, but because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. We all bear some responsibility for that, and hopefully we can all find a role to play in hammering that out in a way that's consistent with our constitutionally guaranteed form of government.
Well, this still is early in the Trump administration, the Trump 2.0. But how different is this from what Biden was doing with his administration? And, if there are people out there that are just the average American that don't follow this day to day, like what's some of the biggest things that you have noticed so far?
Sure. I mean, this is much different from the first Trump term. He's seasoned. He's literally leaner, possibly even meaner, depending on how you measure these things. And the team is higher skilled, whether you're talking about sort of career policy people or folks who have come in through the tech chain, whether through the Thiel lane or the Musk lane. These are serious people. It's a serious situation. That's probably the biggest differentiator between what you saw in the Biden administration, where, you had a few pieces of major sort of executive orders, things like that coming out, pushing for some kind of whole of government, whole of society, transformative shift in the way that technology was used in governance, and they leaned firmly in the direction of, more censorship, more surveillance, more sort of institutionalized wokeness, catechizing the bots into wokeness. Obviously, that's not the kind of thing that Trump would do. But, I think more importantly, the Biden administration was really just kind of trying to kick the can, trying to buy itself some time in the hopes that, AI would hurry up and reach a point at which, you could have sort of Robo Joe, you could have kind of government on autopilot. I know, Eric Schmidt, former Google out there, spent a lot of time in and out of the White House. He still kind of styles himself as the honest broker between tech and the federal government. But he is not the guy in the driver's seat right now. You've got people right now who I think are willing to take much bigger risks, but who are also kind of better cognizant of how to weigh those risks, I think, that I would say. This is a dangerous moment. It's a precarious moment. But I do think that the urgency that needs to be had in again, just sort of fundamentally doing a reassessment and a reboot of the whole sort of grand strategic suite of American policy on tech, on the economy, on finance, on military affairs, and of course, sort of domestic security and ultimately the fate of the American people. A lot of people are sick, mentally, physically, spiritually sick out there. And if no one can spare a thought for the poor American people, then I think, honestly, it doesn't matter how smart your guys are, how many of the right switches they flip. We're still going to have a sick country. And that's why MAHA is on the rise.
Yeah, so this is exactly where I wanted to go next, because I think one of the most fascinating things that's happening in this coalition, let's call it a new coalition, 50 to 60% of Americans, but coalitions are made up of all kinds of factors and factions, right? And what you see developing, and what I've observed over the last few months, is something that really needs people like you, in there working on and helping to shape. And what I mean by that is there is a contradiction. Let's be real between the technologists and MAHA, and you could see it in the early days of HHS as they're putting together that group of people. Sort of tech is ascendant, so you got your Thiel world out there, many people associated with Peter Thiel, amazing group of talented people. You have David Sachs in there. You have, Kratsios is doing this stuff and rolling regulations back, doing some common sense things. But where the rubber's going to hit the road is when it comes to making Americans healthy, I think, because there are certainly some people on the tech side who seem to have less sense of limits. They might be transhumanists, right? They have very different understandings of human nature. And then you also have this MAHA side, which, at least at first glance would look to be, this isn't tech at all. In fact, it's about getting away from big pharma and, science gone wrong. So what do you make of that?
There's so much here, and I think I'll just use kind of one, hot button issue as an example of what's at stake and kind of how to navigate our way forward. I mean, you look at something like IVF, right? And you've got people on one side of the debate, some of them coming at it from an explicitly Christian standpoint, others from a kind of broader, more ecumenical standpoint, saying like, look, it's not the same. Having a baby the natural way is not morally the same as having a baby with a trail of dead embryos behind it, or embryos who are sort of stuck in suspended animation in the freezer for potentially forever. You don't know. And then you got folks on the other side saying, look, populations are going down, and sure, people are not in good health, but one consequence of that is you could have the population crashing unless you allow people to kind of have as many kids as they can using these sort of teched up ways of reproduction. Yeah, it's an interesting debate, and we all have our sort of proclivities and feelings about this, and that debate will be had, it can be had, it needs to be had. But from another standpoint, right, if you look at the body politic and you say, look, a lot of Americans are just not doing well. They're not healthy. Their longevity is bad. Their T count is bad. They're on 5 different SSRIs. I mean, we know all these stories. We know the anecdotes. The science is settled. America is not well, right? Just having more babies is not going to fix that problem. It's not even going to ameliorate that problem necessarily. It might make it worse. Look at what happens to so many of the kids that we already do have. They're among the most unhealthy people in America, right? Same thing with immigration, legal immigration, illegal immigration. So you bring in, 100 million, 200, 300 million, Indians, Mexicans, take your pick, right? If these people are just going to be the next in line to be fed into this machinery of institutionalized illness, that's not a solution. And so, when you're thinking about what solutions are actually going to help make Americans, plural, the American people healthy again, it's not something that you can just slap a policy Band-Aid or a tech Band-Aid on. I think, fortunately, things haven't gotten so bad. We're not South Korea levels where you're like, well, it's either clones or we're dead, right? Fortunately, we're not there yet. So let's take the action now where we don't have to rely on, robots or a trail of dead embryos or a bunch of people who really aren't Americans just being sort of rushed in order to try and plug the gap. We still have time to do it a better way, and I think that's ultimately what MAHA is all about.
Do you have any, I'm curious, so Kratsios says, basically stagnation was a choice, I think was his line, and that we chose stagnation for a long period of time, and now he's here to, get rid of that, and the golden age is a choice, and we're going to choose that direction. So as we get to this deregulation, I'm assuming all of us, we all think like that's going to be good, and there's a lot of that is bad. Is there anything you are concerned with when it comes to, technology moving forward, unregulated?
Every person is going to have their own concerns, and most of them will probably be valid. It's very easy to see how things could go horribly wrong. I think a lot of the tech bros, they have a point when they're like, look, we've all been raised on these sort of dystopian narratives. Like, we get it. We know the script. Everyone has their identity very secure. Who am I going to be in a dystopia? I'm going to be the victim. I'm going to be the rebel. I'm going to be the anarchist. I'm going to be the martyr. Everyone kind of knows how that script goes. And at a certain point, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Few people have that script, know what their identity is in the good narrative, in the good timeline, right? In a golden age, who am I? What should I even do? Why should I get married? Why should I have children? Why should I get out of bed? Why should I not let the robot take my place? And when there are no answers to those questions, then quickly the utopia becomes indistinguishable from a dystopia. So I think, big picture, that's the thing we need to worry about, or, take some action on rather than sit around worrying about stagnation. Yeah, absolutely. It's a choice. It's funny, like you look at where the stagnation came from, and it was during the Obama administration when they just kind of waved through every merger and acquisition. They rubber stamped everything, no antitrust. They created big tech as we know it. And that really spawned the stagnation, even though at the same time you had kind of runaway breakthroughs in the internet, in social media, in sort of like wired Wi-Fi and cell towers, all that stuff. Huge amount of quote unquote progress. But the overall experience was one of stagnation. It was one of people just kind of sinking deeper and deeper into the endless scroll, the content feed of their phones. So yeah, let's get away from that. But let's also realize that, even in a golden age, you look back through history at times when people living in that time referred to their time as a golden age, right? You had some during kind of the height of the Spanish Empire. You had some during kind of the height of the Byzantine Empire, and they still had problems. They still had wars. They still had like deep-seated theological disagreements, massive social challenges. A golden age is not a place where there are no problems. It is a place where you have golden age problems. And we can laugh and joke about first world problems, but there's still problems. And so, as long as we calibrate our expectations in a mature and responsible adult manner, where it's like, yes, let's have that golden age, let the golden age begin, but don't be shell-shocked, don't be surprised, don't feel like a great injustice is being perpetrated against you when you discover that when you get there and the dog finally does catch the car, that there are still golden age problems.
There are golden age problems. And I know from the fourth turning, it tells me that as a millennial, we're part of the hero generation. I don't know if that's going to play out or not, but we shall see.